10 Steelers. Fourth quarter at 17-10. It's Smith. It's Thomas. Oh, he's so wide open. We're all tied.
Yeah, that's a busted coverage right there, but don't fault the Washington football team. Alex Smith just taking advantage of the miscues by the Steelers.
So we're all even. Now, the Steelers have a 4th and 1 on the 28. Their kicker, Chris Boswell, is out. The rookie, Matt Wright, is there. And so Mike Tomlin elects to go for it. The throw is to Anthony McFarland. There's a miscue there, and the Washington football team takes over on downs, and that leads to this. How about this catch?
This is a big-time catch right here by Cam Sims. Being able to survive the ground, one-handed grab, pressure situation. Can't do it any better than that.
That's a big first down. Later in the drive, Dustin Hopkins from 45 away. At first it looks it's going to hook, but then it hangs, and it's good. So Washington up 20-17. But Mike Tomlin had used his timeouts well. They were going to have plenty of time, but there's no time when this happens. Another deflection.
Yeah, that's the story of the game. The Washington football team's defensive line being able to get their hands in passing lanes. 4 batted passes from that group. 3 from Montez Sweat alone.
There will be no perfect season. Washington wins.
In spite of some of the decisions I made today, they played their asses off. Then this really does rank up there. The Pittsburgh Steelers, that's one of the storied franchises as well in this league. So to come in and win, that was big for our guys. I'm real proud of them.
Different points along the journey, you get a chance to learn about yourself, who you are, what you're made of, individually and collectively. And it takes the journey to reveal that. And so, we're faced with a loss now, so we'll get an opportunity to smile in the face of it.
Again, anytime anything bad happens in my life, I want Mike Tomlin explaining to me the positive side of it. But so let's look at this, Jeff. So many different directions. What is your number one takeaway from last night's game?
It was a perfect storm against the Steelers. I mean, ultimately, this team, they never established the run, Greeny. They get down. They have a chance to win the game on a third down. They decide to throw it on the 3rd and 4th down. I don't like that either. If you're going to go for it, you're not going to kick the field goal. At least give them one shot at trying to run the thing in, and then they missed to McFarland down the sideline. Just kind of a frustrating turn of events if you're a Steelers fan. But again, this whole thing will sit there. The football team has a very good defensive front, and they just outplayed Pittsburgh.
And for the second game in a row, Greg, the Steelers with a lot of drops, a lot of mistakes. It almost cost them on Wednesday against Baltimore, and last night it did.
It's amazing, Greeny. I mean, for an organization that is among the best in the NFL at developing wide receivers, why is it that they continue to leave so many plays on the field? Last night, 7 drops. 7. That's the most by a Steelers team in 15 years. That's the most by any team in the NFL this year. They now, on the season, with 1 loss, it's amazing, they have 31 drops. The next closest team in the NFL has 21. They're 10 clear of the number on the team that's coming right now in second in regards to drops. They just can't leave those plays on the field when going against top-level competition.
And so let's talk a little bit about the circumstance. I'm fond of this phrase. Some things are excuses. Other things are reasons, okay? The Washington football team had 11 days between games, Jeff, Saturday. The Steelers had 5. And Hambo sent me this note. The Steelers are the first team in 50 years to play a game with that level of disparity in the schedule. Do you believe that was a factor last night?
Absolutely, I believe it's a factor. And listen, you saw the Steelers, they talked about the frustration with the Ravens game leading up to it, the game getting moved, all the distractions. Listen, we've never seen what's going on. And for these types of events to continue to get moving, it's definitely the frustration was there. But ultimately, Greeny, in my mind, this goes back to the run game and being able to establish it. Mike Tomlin understands you have to be physical in football. Right now, they're not a physical football team, and they got exposed against the Ravens and against Washington last night.
All right, so Chris Canty, let me come to you, because let's give credit where it's due. We said this a couple of weeks ago when we were trying to figure out who in the NFC East was really good. There's one unit, if you will, in that division that is clearly special, and that is the front 7 in Washington, and they won that game last night.
Yeah, and we knew Washington's front 7 would be good coming into the season just based on the draft capital that they put in that unit. But last night, in that ball game, they absolutely dominated the front of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The offensive line could not get any movement at the line of scrimmage, and you saw it in that second quarter goal line stand that they had. The Pittsburgh Steelers had 6 cracks at it, including 4 runs by Benny Snell. They still weren't able to punch it in, and you saw the physicality right there. That group was able to keep that game close for the Washington football team. Their offense couldn't get right. They were 0 for 8 on third downs in the first half, but they were able to do just enough to make sure that they kept it within reach, and then that offense clicked in the second half.
So a little later in this hour, we're going to get deeply into what this means for Washington in the NFC East race. But let me just ask this simply to you, Jeff Saturday. The Steelers are 29th in the league in rushing. Last night, it appeared they didn't even want to bother to try. Do you believe they can win the Super Bowl that way?
No. You listen, they're going to have to they don't have to be a top 10 rushing team, but they have to be able to establish the run. And even, Chris just brought up a great point on the goal line early in the game. At some point, you got to give Roethlisberger the chance to run that thing in a QB sneak. I don't care if it's a design run in the back, but backing them up 5 yards and trying to do RPOs. Listen, teams play against it. They script it. They've all seen it in college. At some point, it's got to be the guy in front of me. I got to dominate him. And right now, the Steelers aren't even giving themselves the opportunity because they're never even attempting it, which is just ridiculous in my opinion. I think at some point, Tomlin understands he's got to get back to physical football. That's got to be the onus coming up for this Buffalo Bill week.
To be clear, they have played the last 2 games without James Conner, who's on the COVID list. But still, Greg, final thought on that Steeler offense. Do they look ready for prime time? And prime time obviously means January.
They got to start adjusting to what they're giving people. They're becoming a little predictable, guys. Against Baltimore, Chris just referenced the fact that there were 4 tip passes in the game. Against Baltimore, they threw the ball under 2.5 seconds 37 times. So we now know, hey, we might not be able to rush Ben Roethlisberger. Let's get the ball out of our hands quickly. And these defensive lines are adjusting. So you got to run the football and you got to keep them off balance, because right now the Pittsburgh Steelers are just a little bit predictable with their short passing game and their quick throws as well.
All right, so that was one of 2 games last night. You know who the Steelers get next? They get the Buffalo Bills. Let's take a look at Buffalo on Monday Night Football at San Francisco, though the game was played in Glendale, Arizona. And we pick it up early, Chris Canty. After an early Bills turnover, the 49ers knocking on the